Okay, it's 5 o'clock. Are we live yet? Live? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'll call the meeting order for the Upson County Board of Commissioners. This is a work session, and we'll get started. And new business for this work session is a presentation from IPG on the concept and design plan for the Judicial Center. And I'll just kind of preface this by, because we've got some of the community, and I appreciate y'all coming. Like I was saying earlier, this is kind of a culmination of a lot of preliminary work that our folks have done on our behalf, starting from scratch to try to figure out, what this thing would look like, and size and shape and design. Our main purpose tonight is so that we can get through this, so that we can at least agree to the concept of this, so that at the same time this is going on and being presented to our user groups that'll start working the specific details on this, we can also get this to parish and our engineers so that we can start moving forward on some civil work and hopefully get some dirt moving pretty soon. So things are going to happen kind of simultaneously, but what you're about to see, and Jason, you and Ben, please add to this, is very preliminary. I mean, but one of the good things, and I really appreciate some of the community coming out tonight. Jessica, I need your help in getting this out through other means for people that aren't here tonight. Is how did they come up with this look? How did they come up with this feel? So that's the fun stuff. So Ben,
yeah, well, and that's what I was going to say is, I mean, really the only input we've given IPG from the get-go is just to pull from the history of the mill town. So what you'll see today is kind of they took it a step further and pulled from different aspects of our community to kind of get to this end look. So I think knowing that is a good preface to going into this discussion.
And Mr. Chairman, I would just add that this is, I think, the third time that IPG is presented to the full board. So actually, obviously, the full board's had a lot of input into the specifics of how the building is laid out. I would just add, I think, what IPG needs and what Parish needs from us, and what EMC needs from us tonight, or needs from the board, is an approval of the site plan and an approval of the design concept, so that people can continue their work. So the intent was to be able to present to the full board again. I guess this is the third official time that we've done that. We did it once in Columbus, we did it once in this room, and then this will be the third. So those are the two objectives that I think that they're seeking to achieve tonight.
Okay, and so I guess with that,
okay,
let's take it and run with it.
all right, fantastic. When we put our team together, just very quick, I want to kind of throw some comments out here to you. We wanted to provide something unique and specific and true to Upson County. Okay, and that was our team, IPG, along with Lord Acting Sergeant here. You have been very clear to us about what's important to you, the citizens of Upson County, and how this building is going to serve them first and foremost. It was invigorating for us to visit and meet with your personnel and the people that will inhabit this building. They were excited about this opportunity. They were frugal in their requests. So it's very, 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 very good experience that we had together there. And we appreciate Jason's availability to us, and Mr. Chair, yours, and the visits we made to look at some precedents as we come up with some ideas here. I want to just share, Dean Rexroth is here, and we have Meg Needle with Lordick and Sargent, and of course Joe Greco. They're our design team. And with that, I'd really love for Joe to go ahead and walk you through where we are, how we got there, and further clarify some of this.
Okay. I'll stand up so everybody can hear me a little bit, but just to start off, this is kind of where we've landed on the site plan. I think everybody knows the area. One of the really important things about the project is the idea that you see the building across the town green instead of, say, a parking lot. So we've worked really hard to have the architecture concepts to kind of embrace the town green, and you'll see that in a couple of the rendering images we have. But the idea is that it's a civic place and a civic space. What we heard in some of our meetings, particularly the last one, and in some of the initial RFQ type of things, but historically rooted, it's a civic building, it's forward-looking at the same time, and it's welcoming to the public. I think those are all important sort of foundational elements of the design. But beyond that, we also sort of feel like we heard that the building ought to be, ought to be workmanlike. It ought to be honest. It should be functionally designed from the inside out. So it's not, it's not a lot of frou-frou. It's a functional workhorse. It's light-filled. So when the public's in there, it's a beautiful building to be in, and it's not, in terms of how the uses are, they're not siloed. It's a lot of flexibility in the spaces, a lot of efficiency, and a lot of shared collaboration type spaces. We kind of delved into the historic precedents. The Martha Mill was one that had been stated a long time ago, but some elements that we wanted to draw from really relate to kind of the symmetry of that building, especially sort of the end elevation. The tripartite stacking, sort of a clear base, a plinth, a middle of it, and then a top. The openings hierarchy, so big public spaces are sort of articulated different than smaller sort of office spaces. The idea again that there's this kind of hierarchy of space. Beyond that, we really wanted to look at some of the other buildings that are clearly important to the community. Obviously, the historic courthouse is a great one. I don't think anybody would want to say, let's copy that, but maybe there's elements from the courthouse that you could really take and bring forward. Brick, for instance, is a very, very unique color of brick, and it's kind of stately, it's kind of unexpected. That's one of the aspects that we kind of latched onto. It has a very strong civic presence, so steps out front, it's raised up in the ground a little bit, but you still have that sort of accessibility to it, but at the same time, it sort of projects seriousness. The emphasis of entry, you know where to get in, there's no, you don't slip in the side door. It's very, very clear. In this case, you've got sort of like 4 entrances, but we would at least do one very, very clear one. And then the masonry expression, there's some beautiful masonry work on it, just the way the window openings are made. We thought that there was a lot of inspiration in the way the brick is put together that maybe could be translated to the new facility. We also looked at the Upson Hotel. It's a little different kind of project. It's not a civic building per se. It's a commercial building, but it's got a real elegance, or had a real elegance to it. One of the aspects is sort of this push and pull of the plane and the material variety. So like in the center of the building, there's kind of this more of a use of a stone. There's brick, but that same stone is sort of transmitted in other parts of the building. So it's not all one material, and the materials are kind of interconnected in a really thoughtful way. And then again, just this idea of these planes are shifting in and out, bringing some things forward, bringing some things back. It doesn't put a lot of bells and whistles on the building, but it sort of leads some detail to it, and it provides clarity about how the building is organized. And then finally, the rhythm of openings. Instead of having a bunch of haphazard ones, clearly these are done in a way that they're very well thought out, articulated, and they're predictable, so that it projects a sense of order as you're looking at it. So with that, I'll just kind of quickly hit the plans. I talked about from the inside out. So this building will sort of represent what's going on inside of it. The way we've seen the building being organized is there's a central major lobby gathering space. It's the light-filled space. It's the first impression when people go inside. There's an opportunity potentially to have higher windows, kind of like a cupola you would bring in light into a building in the center of it, but there's a way to sort of make that a really nice public space. We've also sort of articulated what we call the public gallery spaces that allow you to have access into the courtrooms and into some of the other major spaces in the building, but these would be very wide, very generous, and very public in their nature. And then there are a series of major sort of public spaces. You've got the law library, you've got the jury selection, magistrate, this is on the ground floor, clerk, basically areas that are sort of that transitional. They're behind a door, but they are public by nature, and we felt that there's an opportunity to kind of express that in the architecture. Finally, the courtrooms. There's 2 of them, large one, small one, very flexible on 2 floors. They stack right on top of each other, so there's great efficiency in terms of bringing people up and down through that. A lot of flexibility in their use. And then really when you think about it, the rest of the building is essentially courtroom support in some form or fashion. So there's, again, common areas that are back there. These are articulated there in white, the areas that are kind of shared resources. So at the end of the day, there's very, very few kind of siloed spaces in the building. Lots of shared ones, but clearly articulated and clearly understandable from the public as well as the staff. And finally, you've got to have your stairs in the building, but the opportunity to kind of use the 2 stairs on the front of the building, fire stairs, as kind of bookending elements to kind of frame the composition was an aspect that we thought was powerful, as well as the strong connection to the town green. If you think back to that site plan, this idea that there's this light-filled place and you can see the town green as you are inside, and there's sort of the inside-outside characteristics. Second floor pretty much stacks up the same way, which is nice because then you don't have a lot of confusion and you got very efficient structures you come through the building. So as we thought about it, how would those sort of project into the architectural forms? This was just kind of an initial, what you might describe as a massing pass. How would the openings work out? Well, there's probably a large center one, kind of these flanking elements that contain the security and the stair, as well as the sort of the major public spaces, so the bigger windows that are on the front there. And thinking about these as a series of sort of articulated volumes that represent the spaces that are used behind it. So with that, we came up with 4 different options as to how that might actually manifest themselves architecturally. And this is the first one. The idea in the center of the building is that it uses a lot of glass, but it also has sort of like a Georgia white marble, so it picks up on essentially fairly local materials. The concept we had about the brick was to try to pick on the color of the historic courthouse. Again, a very unique brick, very draws from the soil of the area, so indigenous to the area. And then maybe pick up some of the what might have been sort of considered limestone colors in the base of the building. So perhaps that is that base level that you see in the courthouse, kind of more of a limestone gray idea. We looked at, and again, I think you can see the sort of strong connection between the building, a plaza out in front, and the town green. We looked at another version that maybe made it a little less glassy and gave a little more support to the center of the building, and potentially, it's not unusual to see a courthouse with a clock. Maybe there's a strong civic gesture like a clock in that sort of strong opaque piece there in the middle, something that gives it a very, very strong civic presence. We thought it was an interesting idea. When we get in closer, you'll see this one actually rounds the vestibule canopy, and so it sort of has a softer edge and it plays the sort of strong forms of the civic building against that. We thought that it might also be cool to actually do that as a glass face clock, so it would be in reverse when you're on the inside looking back, and we've got some interior views as well, but it could be an interesting expression as well. And then we looked at one that's a little bit maybe simpler in its form, sort of a large main public space. Clearly you know where to go into this building, and that is sort of the main gathering space that allows you to essentially get into most of the courtroom spaces from there. And then this is just a little bit sort of clearer of those different options, and I'll take the inside and outside. So what happens on the outside of the building has implications about the inside, so you usually try to kind of make those decisions together. But this is that first option, essentially squared canopy, has sort of more projected fins on the west facing, so to help kind of control some of the sun that would be coming through there. That main space on the inside, as you can see, would have large windows at the top, so you'd be bringing in a good bit of light into that main public space, and then a public stair that takes you up to the second level courtrooms, as well as the other major spaces up there. The option 2 with the sort of solid clock sort of plays out the same way. As you can see, this one sort of has a rounded canopy, so a little bit softer in that regard, but with the sort of strong clock gesture. When you're on the inside, you get the opaque piece. Of course, you could actually put it into your clock there if you wanted to. A little bit different sort of in its interior proportions, but the same idea, having a major public staircase in there that is welcoming and sort of gives you good wayfinding intuitively. And then this is the third one where you have the sort of clear face. And you can imagine there where you'd see, have to write the numbers in reverse or something funky like that, but it could be pretty cool. But again, the idea that you're bringing all this light there into the center of the building. And then finally, option 4, this is the one sort of with the biggest window. Gives you a little different feel, but you can imagine a really strong connection to the town green and that landscape area as you look through the glass there. We also, just taking you around the building, most of the options related sort of to the front of it, but we have taken a look at what the architecture might do as you go all the way around. Again, it's essentially a 2-story building on the front. It drops off to 3 stories on the back, where you've got the sort of drop off of prisoners and whatnot, and as well as the basic sort of service area of the building, drive through into Sallyport. So this is all secured parking to the rear. Kind of the rear facade, obviously spending less money on the rear, but trying to make sure that it's a consistent building all the way around, and it looks like it's, you know, designed by one team. As you go around to the back, the larger windows in the middle are sort of the common shared staff spaces, so it kind of represents those areas as well. And then coming all the way back around to the front side, you've got an separate employee entrance capability. You know, it could be, they could also use the front door, but the ability to get in from the primary dedicated staff parking is very possible there on the left side of the building. We also jumped inside, and maybe we'll share a little bit of that first. These are some of the historic precedents we use, but I think there's a relevance, the idea that you have light kind of at main lobby space, but you've also got cross light as you look down sort of the gallery spaces. You know, the courtrooms having a simplicity, you know, an elegance and a judicial dignity to them in terms of their design is something that we felt was important. The public interface, there are plenty of places where the public will be interfacing with staff, and to try to make that very welcoming, very connected, light-filled, pleasant place to work, pleasant place for people to go is an important part of the idea. So they're generally located on the outside walls. And then these are just a couple other images of the lobby. When you come in past sort of security, the idea there that you could have a very sort of strong accent wall, perhaps there's some of the gallery display artifacts, historic artifacts, things like that are all very possible in that lobby space. Again, a stair that would take you up. There is an elevator that's right there as well, so anybody who needs that would be able to use it, but trying to encourage people to take the stair where possible. And then just a couple of the other views. This is kind of the public space. Again, these aren't quarters, this is a gallery. These are like 10, 12 feet wide, and they're sort of the ability to have, you know, nice artwork and other kinds of things that have sort of historic memorabilia for Upson County. And this is just sort of the sample entry into the sort of probate area. When you get to the top, we thought it might be interesting to bring a little bit of the outside brick in in that area. But again, a high degree of sort of connectedness and clear, easy wayfinding throughout the building. And these are just a couple renderings of the court spaces. Again, nothing, you know, incredibly ostentatious, but clean, simple design, bringing in some wood into it. There's a strategy for bringing some natural light in from above. And again, just, you know, sort of quiet, intentional dignity. This is the smaller courtrooms, so courtrooms B and D have a little different flavor to them, but same kind of design aesthetic. And that's basically the summary. We've got a couple other things. I could show a little bit about the materials, and maybe I'll do that. There's just a couple slides here. But we did do a little research on the brick, and have found a local brick that seems to be you know, at a good price point, very, very close to that color. It seemed like a pretty unique representation of the area. This was some of the marble that you might find, so it would be light in color, very sort of civic and impressive, but not used to excess, I think, in our mind. And then the opportunity to use some of these sort of other sort of accent materials like that are sort of a limestone color. There's actually, it's like a brick. It's not exactly a brick. It's made a little bit differently, but it's made locally. Would have a little different module, but we thought that might be a good sort of material for the base of the building. It kind of plays nicely off of the brick color, and again, it's a locally made material, so I felt that was a good thing. So that's basically the summer. We can go back to anything, talk about options, whatever suits your fancy.
Any questions or thoughts?
I'll move back to the general option one there, just as a resting point.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what the other three have to say.
Well, I'll just, so we spent some time, and we went to several facilities. We went to the one in Habersham, and we went to, made 2 trips to the one in Barrow, Winder. And for me, and I think, you know, that's kind of what opened up the conversation about access into the building. When you go into the building, you know, making sure it's well lit, that you know, this is the public's building. You know, yeah, you know, we have, you know, public servants working in this building, but it is the public's building. So, you know, we didn't really want it to feel like, you know, we wanted to be warm and welcoming to people that were coming into the building. And that, so well lit, plenty of places to, you know, for people to mingle away, you know, if they're trying to, you know, do whatever. You know, we're going to have multiple functions up there, and there'll be a lot of activity in the building. So if somebody needed to get away, that there'd be a spot that, you know, they could go sit, you know, by a window and look outside, not be in some bland hallway. You know, we wanted the public to have access to the light and the windows, not just have all the offices absorb all those window features and stuff like that. So that's what kind of drove the openness. Sheriff Kilgore has been involved in this, and I think if y'all are curious, and I don't know if we're at that point yet, where you know, with the sheriff's design on traffic in and out of the building, public and inmate. You know, a lot of that's all built into this. You know, secure transit from the bottom floor up to all 4 courtrooms with holding facilities on each floor to accommodate everything from your general inmate, male, female, to juveniles, and maintaining that separation that's required. So that's kind of what, you know, kind of led to this, you know, all that discussion and those visits. So with that, I'll shut up. What do y'all think? Again, this is not the be all end all, but this is just to kick the can down the road so we can start doing some civil work.
So is this what y'all propose?
This is what they've come up with based on.
Right, but I mean, have y'all got a preferred one that y'all?
So we came with one today. Yeah, we came with one solution, one initial solution with maybe a couple little nuances, got some feedback, and then developed these 3 or 4 options around the feedback that we got. I guess the one thing that maybe to me was sticking from an architectural expression was that it would be historically rooted but forward-looking. You know, how do you do both of those 2 things at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, you see, obviously, it's very minor differences on that center part, and that was kind of what was our bulk of our conversation the other day, was geared on that center piece. I mean, I have a personal preference, but
I like
you
it
know.
a lot. I mean, if you late for court, you run it. You know.
Well, all right. So the all glass. Can we go back to?
Oh yeah, that was that. Or the
No,
auto.
the last one, yeah.
So actually, there is some difference here because that's higher.
It's just that centerpiece, though, all the whites.
What is the inside? Can we see that?
Yeah, sure. I have to look a little bit.
That
forward.
was my personal.
So they're all, the plan is the same.
Was it what that picture?
Yeah,
That's the
yeah,
picture you're looking
yeah.
at.
Well, you know. I
I
mean,
know.
we're getting in the weeds.
Come on,
up
Mr.
here.
Clean. Mr. Clean.
I like light.
Light.
Light, yeah. I got a watch and a phone. Who don't? I mean, but that's you know, it's nothing to argue over. I mean, but I just like light, natural light.
Yeah.
Saves on electricity.
This was the one that I liked the best.
And that'll be facing the east, right? I mean,
No,
no,
that's
facing the west.
It's a little bit
South.
So-
It requires some
So it's be some sun.
treatment, but it can be done, and we've done it with massive walls
So you
like
could-
that.
So it's gonna be a
Some
sun
fret,
issue.
some fret on the walls, or I mean on the glazing, and controlling the solar gain aspect of on that west exposure. But the technology is there to make that work. And
More sun coming in, the more it costs to cool
Right.
it.
I mean, it's generally this main public space, which generally won't have people that are sitting there all the time. So even though it's, you know, you're in it for, generally speaking, a briefer amount of time, and it's a little bit less of an issue than if it's in your workstation.
Well, and with y'all's mechanical engineer, y'all can zone this in a way to where you have
Sure.
different
Yep.
VABs for exterior walls and stuff like that.
See, we went to Habersham. Habersham, one of the things that they were lacking was this feel. You know, you walked in the door there, and then you were looking for the next door to go in. This gives you more of a, okay, I've, you know, it's kind of like going to the airport. You go through TSA, and once you come out of TSA, you can go, okay, I can breathe now. Now where do I need to go? You don't feel like you're being pushed somewhere. So I like that.
Yeah, I thought the other options with the fins, in my opinion, I mean, the fins dated it a little bit. Kind of made it.
Look at option 3 again, interior.
Okay. Interiors, that one.
That one. So there you see the transparency in the clock that you're looking at, telling the wrong time for what time it really is.
I mean, that one, you would be able to project those fins a little bit to get a little bit of some amount of shading from that, so that was the thought behind it. It would give you a little bit more opportunity, but again, there's other strategies. You can put basically a dotted pattern on the glass that helps reduce glare.
And you could do the same thing without the clock.
You could, sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, that could be without the clock and just a window too.
This is like picking paint colors, man, come on.
Well, again, I mean, we're not here to get in the weeds on this, because this is, I mean, we're basically looking at the scope and the general design so that we can get moving. I mean, at what point, I mean, are we picking exterior brick colors and that stuff? I mean,
I think it's great, I think it's great never to delay. You know, if you have a thought, throw it out there. So that's fantastic. But it's nothing that we're committed to at the moment. But we're also going to be partnering with Parrish to make sure that the decisions we make, if we have options, we find the frugal response to the option.
Well, yeah, because I'm wondering if that marble's gonna get VE to EFIS or something. That's pretty expensive.
okay, so I just had one whisper.
Right, I mean, you know,
I mean-
somebody's gotta pick something, so I'm gonna say.
That's my preferred. But I think
I
that
mean,
for
I'm not gonna
today,
argue over.
I think for today, just making sure, I mean, are they on the right track with the general
Right.
structure and the general color schemes? I mean, we can fine tune little things, materials here and there, but just, hey, are they moving in the right direction? Because what we don't want to have is them to get to the next phase of design, and then we say, oh, I don't like this look at all.
Well, my only question is this, there's nothing that's gotta be painted other than glaze on windows, right? I mean, or we're just, that's the only maintenance.
No, I think there's almost nothing on the outside of the building that's painted.
Maybe a little pressure washing.
A little pressure washing and window cleaning.
Right.
Well, how long has it been since the old
We
courthouse?
look at these like churches. They don't need maintenance. You do not need exterior maintenance of issues. So
And what would the roof be? So it's gonna be a flat roof, what kind of?
It's a singularly sloping roof to the back, so it's not flat, meaning it won't leak. And then.
Can I take you to the bank on that?
Well, yes, I
Okay.
can take Rob to
We'll
the
try to
bank.
stay away from the trouble drains.
But
Basically,
simple.
a sloping structure.
Yeah.
And we've had discussions about that because, as
Nobody-
Jim can tell you, the products that were very, very cost effective 6 months ago aren't. But there's better products that are. So it's really, we have to be real thoughtful about how we decide on what type of roof. But it's a low sloping roof to the back.
Any equipment gonna be on the roof?
Not presently.
Okay, so the basement, that's where all the
Correct.
machinery rooms are gonna be, fire suppression systems, all that stuff will be down in the basement. What else is in the basement? IT,
IT.
we talked about IT space in the basement.
The
Got a large
we
file.
still have the surveillance room there, even though the sheriff's department has an office right there by security. But, and of course, all the prisoner delivery is coming into the basement, into the lower level.
Yeah,
And we also have a large file storage. for-
yes. I'm looking at Jessica. Jessica, your eyes, I'm looking, watching your eyes. You like what you hear?
Can I see number one? Yes, ma'am.
And this option is closer to where we started when these folks that saw it, just widening the windows a little bit more from that. But all the options have maintained, like Joe said, that civic presence without it straying too far from that.
But I think we did like the sort of curve on the vestibule canopy was because it was kind of right there when you come up to it. It sort of, to us, it added a little bit of warmth and welcomeness to it without straying too far from the civic seriousness of the building.
And you know, this is kind of the hard part because, I mean, I know we're the ones that don't have to live and die by this.
That's right.
But, you know, and we you know, and if you take it out and you put it out publicly and say, hey, asking for public input on this, then we'll go from 3 options to 30 options. And we'll be no closer than we are. So it's one of those things. So I'm just kind of looking around the room back there, people that are here. I mean, this is not a public hearing, so head nods, like what you see. All right.
Yeah, I just want, so can you talk a little bit about the courtroom, the function of the courtroom? You got 4 courtrooms, one is small, 2 smaller ones, 1 larger one.
2 larger ones. There's a large one and a smaller one on each floor,
On each
stacked on top of each other, and they're all going to be, you know, shared. So it could be that we could be running Superior Court, 2 Superior Courts going on, while there's a probate hearing and a juvenile court hearing going on at the same time. So it's really going to, you know. So when we say this is not siloed, you know, it's not like, you know, people are going to go up there and start hanging their shingles on office spaces, you know, conference rooms,
So yeah, from the first to
break areas. Those things are all going to be shared.
I mean, it's almost a direct.
So there could be
implication.
2 Supreme Court.
Yes, there could be a variety of hearings going on at the same time.
And then who all will be housed in the building?
Okay,
I
so
can-
I can tell you, so the sheriff obviously has a function there. The district attorney's office right now is programmed to be on the 2nd floor. Bottom floor is top, bottom floor first. You got your, you know, we tried to, the offices that typically had the most use, we wanted them on the bottom floor and most accessible. So we have determined that to be the clerk court's office and the magistrate's office. And then once you get upstairs, that's where the district attorney, the probate,
And juvenile.
and juvenile court, and Superior Court judges up there as well. So,
You got it.
Basically,
center of the building, that's our secure passage, you know, inmate holdings and things like that. Basement, sally port, the vehicles will be coming into the building, into a secure space. Inmates will process out of those and go into the basement and then into the sheriff's custody down there. IT, some filing,
And some more sheriffs,
some more of the sheriff's spaces, yeah.
a little bit enlarged holding area
Yeah.
just there for transitioning
Yeah.
up to the courtroom level.
Secure parking in the back for what we will more likely be, you know, our judges. And
It's
then-
essentially combining 4 buildings into one.
Yes, yes. So, but anyway, that's it, and, you know, and we're not there completely on what you see are all the offices and how, I mean, at some point, we're gonna get the opportunity to start doing some of the dreaded value engineering of this as it comes. You know, this is This is based right now on some early work that some of the user group has put together on what they thought they would need as far as spaces, you know. And so our challenge will be, once y'all decide, we start moving forward and we start getting cost estimates, then it'll be like, okay, what's got to go, you know, kind of thing. But
They did say that there was a second elevator for inmate transport. Is that
Correct.
right?
yeah, it's
I
secure
thought you-
elevator.
It's a secure one, right?
Yeah.
The center part in between the two
Right.
courtrooms is
Use it
your,
as a freight elevator too.
You can see they're back to back.
You know,
Yeah, they're next
furniture
to
up
the
and down,
stairs.
everything else.
Furniture.
You gotta take furniture upstairs somehow.
It'll be moved one time.
Yeah.
When this thing is built.
Files.
Something I'd like to share while we're on, can we go back to that other slide real quick?
Lower.
While we're on that slide, on the lower level, you'll see that boxed out area in green towards the bottom of the screen. All right, so part of the building is a basement level underneath that upper floor, the main floor. Part of it in this sketch is not. If we were to embrace that as part of the job, to where we get you a full basement instead of a half basement, you know, we talked with our structural engineer, we talked amongst, you know, with some of you also. That's the cheapest square footage we could get. But it's not that useful, because it's kind of tucked up under things. But it may be really worthwhile, because structurally, it simplifies the building a little bit, which gives us some efficiency there. And because we don't have part of it on slab on grade and part of it on elevated and stuff. But that's worth considering. But that's something that we can work through. But we just want to kind of share that if that gives you it gives you some room for growth, storage. If you've got, you know, equipment and things off-site you like to have more control over and it's closer to you, that's a possibility.
Voting machines.
Yeah.
yeah, I think that'd be an opportunity to do kind of a cost comparison between the two. I mean,
And that's where we're going next with the structural engineer having been kicked off.
What they did in, Jason, was it Habersham, where they built they built the third floor,
Yeah.
Right.
and left it unfinished for growth, and they're already growing into it. Now, some of it, yeah, I mean, it's there, so, you know, there's probably a desire from some to go ahead and go and expand into it. I don't know how much of a need it is, but there's certainly a want to go ahead and expand into it. So they built a vacant third floor, but that, I mean,
What kind of square footage could we,
we're at 53,000.
could we get out of that
For
additional?
the additional
we have a-
bottom half.
I'm gonna say just less than 10. I'm gonna say 9-ish, 9,000.
And we do have one undesignated, that long linear space that's considering part of the build out for sure. So it's kind of under the gallery.
And right now,
Mr.
we made
Chairman.
the basement about as big as you can make it for the things that we, that were in the program that you can put there.
Program,
Plus
yes.
some.
Mr. Chairman, to put that in perspective, that would be like one floor of the old DOT building. That's just that space. Which would open up an
Yeah.
opportunity to continually consolidate.
Yeah, I think it behooves us to at least get a cost on having that available.
And once we move forward with the soil borings and the civil work and the structural and the civil together, that'll start to shake out what makes sense relative to a uniform construction all through the lower level versus two different types of construction.
What do you think?
Well, I think if this is the footprint we're gonna have, we need to go ahead and move forward and, you know, then get the final, you know, decorations, if you wanna call it, moving along too. So I'm happy with it. You know, we just gotta figure out which facade we're gonna put on the front. Do some cost and engineering on that extra little basement part right there, which probably we could use down the road. I like it. Looks great.
Thank you.
Yeah, we could just have it built before the end of the year.
Summer 2024. So, Lorenzo, what you-
I like it, I actually like 3 because of the clock, but I don't know how much maintenance involved and I'm gonna be incurred with the clock. But 3 or 4, either one of them, I'm satisfied with either one of them, man.
so that would be 3, that's what you're calling 3?
Yeah.
And 4 would be
Right.
that.
Yeah.
And you could incorporate a clock in this option too.
Right.
A
Yeah,
glass
I-
transparent. I just like this because I think with some signage up there on the top of that marble will really make it
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some
So
signage.
this, this is definitely the most
Yeah,
sort
like
of.
What you want,
Metal.
LED?
no, like just metal, backlit.
Piggy Park?
Now, you saying that, I mean,
Wait.
where's the identification for the building gonna be?
We've talked through that, and I think with the design team, we're thinking down low wing walls that would be more pedestrian friendly rather than, I don't know how well this facade lends itself to a big sign up there. And I think that's a little bit drawing on history as well. It's either etched in the marble or it's not there.
You've got, there's the low walls at the side of the building, one that would sort of mask the ramp in behind it. We've seen that done really nicely where it's essentially, etched into the stone name of the building on the low wall, so it's kind of just a little bit, below eye level as you're coming up to the building as opposed to sort of permanently on
I
it.
mean, you could just put something out at the road and not put anything on the building at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're definitely gonna need something at the entrance.
Yeah, a monumental sign
Yeah.
of some kind out there that's in the same
So,
flavor
y'all-
as the architecture of the building.
so
I like
again,
the lighter.
one thing we haven't talked about, just so everybody understands. So this is, as you look at the placement on the property, it's on the southern end of the property. It's using the what's the name of that road?
Bluegrass Street.
Bluegrass Street as the entrance to the backside of the building for the sheriff's secure access. And then what you see there obviously is the off the Highway 19 view. Are those retention ponds? I mean, is that what those are, or?
They may be. We've had some discussion about that. We've got a low part of the site that comes through there. I think if they are, like Ben was saying before this, that we need to handle them such that they're retention ponds with a feature in them, and they don't become a fenced retention pond that becomes an
Yeah,
eyesore.
we don't have a lot of success with retention ponds around here, so. keep it- It's a maintenance thing, it's a
Right.
maintenance thing too. Any concerns about placement? I mean, it's kind of dictated by the slope of the land and all of that.
No, I'm good with it.
I see a lot of trees.
So the ones with the dotted lines around them are the existing trees.
Yeah. That was
So
one
that's
large
all.
one in front of the building there. I mean, I know that's existing tree, but
That
Right.
block off
Is
some of the
that-
sun.
Would be good to get rid of the billboard though.
Now, part of the thought process in the building location is to save as much of the north part of your property as we can for
Potential
future
future.
buildings that might house some other county functions.
What about the light colored brick?
the what?
The light colored brick pulling from the courthouse? Because that's a.
Do we have anything showing the other brick?
Because when y'all were flipping through earlier, can you go back to the Upson Hotel?
Oh, sure.
Like, I don't mind the lighter, but The Upson Hotel color could be
Well,
a
that's
second option, a little bit.
a little
Not
bit
as
darker.
Yeah, a little bit darker, not as dark as like red. Because somebody made a comment I heard over there, it looked like the hospital or something. And when you said that, I started thinking that.
Right.
For what it's worth, what we're showing in the rendering there is actually, I'd say what I'm gonna go to the one where you don't have to look at it through the trees, but we were actually using two different bricks.
Yeah, I like the two-tone.
That are fairly close in color,
Mhm.
but the ones that sort of set off the, get you to the right one. Do the fire stairs and set off the lobby there, so it's possible that you could actually draw on two historic bricks and kind of meld them together in a way. That was one of the thoughts we were kind of kicking around.
And notice also on that elevation, just some of that, some framework around, brick framework around the windows
Yeah.
that's starting to pick up stylized frames that you see on your present courthouse.
So how often do you get into a project like this? You guys have done many of these projects. Do you get like to this point with a body like us and we say, yeah, we like that, and then 3 weeks later we're calling you going, yeah, that brick, public outcry, well, yeah, let's go with the darker brick. Is that?
I've seen it change at the
You
mock-up
want the
board.
truth? About 95%.
That's my point.
When they get out
Those
there,
are easy to change.
That's my point. So
when they get out there on site, they're gonna do a mock-up board, and I've seen it
That's exactly
change
right.
when we've
Exactly
been there.
Did you
Yeah.
change that?
Yeah.
Yeah, hey, and there's absolutely no reason that we pick something tonight
Yeah.
to get the ball rolling, that you guys can't give us a large rendering of this,
Yeah.
that Jessica can put in the hallway out here, and people can walk by and see it, so I like them all, but I'm more partial to the one that didn't have the clock.
First one?
I don't know if it's 1 or 4.
Both of them don't have the clock.
Yeah, I don't know if it's 1 or 4.
Yeah, 2 or 3 is.
While you're thinking about that, let me just say,
That one. I kind of like that one.
let me just
But-
say this, that there are multiple checkpoints along the way for every one of these design decisions and material decisions. So this is sort of the first checkpoint.
Okay. All right, well, I'll like that too.
Mr.
All right.
Mr. Chin, just as a point of clarification for process, we do have it on your regular meeting agenda. The IPG is the first under new business, and we have it as discussion and consideration of concept design for judicial center.
Okay, so we're not doing it right now.
So-
It'll be at our next meeting here in about 10 minutes. So if you guys want to hang around, then you'll get. But I really do appreciate everything you guys have done. And so, are there any other questions y'all want to take? We've got 12 minutes before our meeting kicks off, so and we close this meeting, walk around for a minute, and if you got any sidebar questions for this gentleman, the ladies, we'll bring this up again in a few minutes.
When we get to, voting on that, but how far down the road is it before we get the design board and all that other stuff? On
The interior?
the interior, and that's probably a pretty good way down the road.
That starts to get more heavily into the next phase, the design development phase, but the idea would be to try to, just like this, we want to get pretty close to, this is the concept, definitely brick colors and stuff, can change. We want to get to that sort of same thing in the next phase on the interiors. Here's the general direction, sure, some fabrics or whatever, colors can change, but want to kind of be moving down with the basic idea at that phase.
Things like
Right.
the courtrooms and the holding area, and, some of these public places, like the restrooms and those kind of things, the engineers are going to get into those.
Yeah.
Become hard once.
I don't think I'm speaking out of turn for anybody up here, but I don't think there's anybody up here that wants to get into picking carpet and wall colors and stuff like that. Other than to say, it's the same. Where, that this is not a siloed building, that everybody when you walk in one office and then you walk in another office, you feel like you're in the same building. You don't feel like you've gone through some sort of, cross some border somewhere.
We understand.
So, I know you understand. There's some other people though that are gonna have to understand. Now, I don't mind the secure spaces being, haze gray and stuff like that.
No
but-
walnut offices right there.
Well, yeah. Okay. All right, so we got our order. We got 10 minutes to take a break, come back, think about it, and vote on this. So is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Right.
All in favor? We're adjourned. We'll see you in 10 minutes. Oh, me.
And they're okay to, you want them to leave it up?
Yeah, please, leave that up.